So Martin is one of my favorite films overall. It is one of my favorite vampire films, and most importantly, it is my favorite George Romero film. To me, that is such a strong representation of like the depth and breadth of how vampires have been written, dealt with, and used within the genre to represent major ideas about isolation and self-discovery. Martin is about a boy who's convinced he's a vampire, and Romero purposefully leaves it very ambiguous. So in the first reel of the film, we watch him be a vampire in this very amorphous, structureless kind of way. And so that really lends to our disorientation around whether he's imagining his experience. But what I find so amazing about that opening scene is that it's very ethereal, very dreamy. This is something that you see a lot in 70s horror films, adding that extra layer to who's crazy, me, him, his family, nobody. I don't know whether that experience is being put upon him because of religious symbolism and other people's deep beliefs. For example, in this film, he's going to visit his older cousin, and his older cousin is deeply devout, deeply religious. His cousin thinks that he's presenting him with a novel idea of difference. But as much as the cousin believes in his religion, Martin believes in his vampirism. But the idea is kind of the same. Nobody can prove anything. Could it be in his mind? Maybe so. Most of what's happening in the film isn't captured on film. It's existing in the mind, it's existing in the mechanisms of the minds, and it exists in the space between characters. When we're watching characters interact, the film is laid out in such a way where you can read that as easily as you could read subtitles if you know what you're looking at. And that's something that George Romero, in my opinion, is notorious for creating those silent spaces where the audience is encouraged to fill things in. Any denial of what you are, who you are, or what you desire, any stomping of that, any suffocation of that will drive you further into that prison, further into that delusion. And it's a lonely place to be. So The Man Who Laughs from 1928 is a really special film to me, and I think for the whole genre. Why it's meant so much to me, I think, is because it's a very clear and simple story about an outcast. And this character, the lead character, has a permanently carved in smile on his face. So we're really dealing in appearance and perception as the prison that our lead character is trapped in. A lot of scenes and characters and moments that perhaps people would be tempted in this day and age to like tweak or, you know, not film in its entirety. Silent films don't bother with that. I think that is the power of silent films because what silent films provide that no one else does is room to think. Because even as you go through it and you understand, one, this was done to him, the permanently carved in smile was done to him by an adult as a piece of revenge. We're very much aligned with our lead character, and it almost dilutes the scary. The prison that I'm in isn't even mine, it's your prison for me. I do not think I've seen too many films that are seamlessly blending supernatural or otherworldly with cold, hard reality. So that is something about the Black Phone. From the minute you enter that film, you can almost like feel that pressure. So in the Black Phone, we're really getting into the imposed identity issue. And it's especially important because the lead characters are children. And I think that's what makes it such a powerful exploration of what that even means. So I feel like throughout the Black Phone, victimhood is the imposed identity that is being placed on the brother and sister who are lead characters. He has an abusive father, he's being bullied at school, and he feels socially powerless at this moment. And they do a really good job of making the basement he's being kept in a liminal space or a timeless space, sort of like a purgatory, because this is where the phone is. This is where we suddenly are seeing all these supernatural aspects. But this is probably the first time in his short life that he's been able to really mull over what is going on with him, what his responsibilities are, what his life is like. And it is to that end that we see him triumph. So it's a really cool story about boys digging into those emotions and allowing themselves the pathway to be understood by others. Our interpretation of how prison works has absolutely no redeemable qualities. And I think the Black Phone takes something like isolation, kidnappings. It takes these things where you're being violated and actually turns them into moments of clarity. Because Finn is not truly a victim. He's someone who's been repeatedly cast as one. Others have decided that of him. And once he goes into that basement and has to face his own life and reality, he realizes he can defend himself. He realizes that he can be stronger and he realizes he can get himself out of things. And I don't think prior to that experience, he had that level of self understanding, self awareness, or self confidence. So, The Black Phone is a really awesome story, especially if you're looking at the themes that it's touching on about what it means to grow up, about who grows up when, who gets a choice about growing up, and who is just going to have to wade through whatever chaos is thrown their way. All three of these films delve into the idea of prison, of confinement, of being trapped, of being controlled, of being manipulated. And all three films essentially come to the same conclusion of people are what we make them. And that's it.